stress management, techniques, activities and coping strategies. Are you stressed? This article on stress management by Michael Tomaszewski shows some tips and techniques to effectively manage stress. A recent report from the American Psychological Association indicates the average stress levels in the U.S. are at their lowest since 2007. The current average is 4.9 on a scale of 1 to 10. The average perceived healthy level of stress is at 3.9. But almost 75% of Americans report having experienced at least one stress symptom in the last month. If we narrow down the sample to only include people younger than 35, the number becomes 95%. Millennials, Gen X, and Gen Z all experience greater levels of stress than any generation before them. If this trend is sustained, the next decades will bring a real stress epidemic. But what can we do about it? This article will explain the phenomenon of stress, as well, and show you exactly how to manage long-term stress, and why it is so important. What is stress in the first place? Before we tackle the issue of stress management, and outline the most successful methods of dealing with stress, it's crucial to actually understand the issue in question. And this is where we encounter the first problem. Stress cannot be defined easily, mostly because it's a very subjective phenomenon, affecting different people in different ways. Even the American Institute of Stress states that stress, however common and problematic, is not a scientifically useful term. First things you need to know, though, is that stress is a natural physiological reaction that you cannot avoid. It is not necessarily bad. In fact, you need stress to survive. Defined very broadly, stress is our body's physical response to any change occurring in our environment, in our thoughts, or within our body, that requires adjustment. When we are stressed, our body reacts as if we were under attack, and releases a mix of chemical substances and hormones to prepare us for physical action. Our blood pressure rises, unnecessary bodily functions, such as digestion, are shut down, and we experience a boost of energy. Sounds good so far, doesn't it? Why do we need stress management? When we're stressed, our body enters a mode called fight or flight. Our blood flow is then directed only to the most important muscles, those we need to defend ourselves or run away. Our brain function becomes limited to instincts. While stress as such isn't a negative thing, it can severely hamper our lives if we are experiencing it continuously, over long periods of time. As mentioned above, stress changes the way our body functions. Such changes, if prolonged, can lead to adverse effects on our physical and mental health. What are the negative effects of prolonged stress? The most important adverse effects of long-term stress can be grouped into 5 key areas: physical, emotional, cognitive, and behavioral. Physical effects: increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, indigestion, frequent colds, acne. Emotional effects: depression, anxiety, irritability, panic attacks, overwhelmedness, cynicism. Cognitive effects: trouble concentrating, feeling of a brain fog, self-doubt, inability to finish tasks, poor judgment, hampered decision-making skills. Behavioral effects: social isolation, lack of motivation, distorted patterns of sleep, sleeping too little or too much, loss of sense of humor, increase in the intake of psychoactive substances such as nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol. So how can you manage your stress? 1. Embrace stress instead of demonizing it. A fascinating study conducted by Stanford and Yale researchers focused on how the attitude towards stress changes the way we deal with it. Who can't relate to that, right? Plus, trying too hard to reduce stress, for example avoiding the stress of paying bills, is a surefire way for the stressful factors to accumulate later on. The participants of the study, managers in a large multinational banking firm, were shown different videos about stress over the course of 1 week. One group of participants would watch videos presenting the negative impact stress has on our health. Another group, clips showing positive short-term effects of stress, as well as case studies of the performance-enhancing impact of stress. Over the course of the following weeks, the latter group turned out to perform better, be more engaged at work, and report a 23% drop in stress-related physical symptoms, compared to the former group, as well as control. The takeaway is simple: thinking about stress in terms of a challenge and opportunity, rather than an obstacle, will help you tackle your stress triggers more effectively while perhaps paradoxically, keeping you less stressed in the meantime. More to come in part 2.